All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Legendary Banner predictions at last for April of 2019. As always, we do these usually a week before the banner comes out. I guess I'm just one day late. It's been a really busy week for me personally. So if you've noticed a little bit of gap, or maybe these have been a little bit later, I thank you for your patience because school and teaching right now has caught up to me a bit with tons of marking, tons of end of year comments and stuff as we approach June, and that's where the end is for me. So again, thank you for your patience. The Legendary Banner predictions, I got to preface this by saying, are pretty predictable this time compared to many other ones. I feel like most, if not all, of these units I predict should happen because well, red is already covered. We already kind of know what red is, and yeah, I mean, there's most of the other stuff is as predictable as it becomes because all of these banners have been very consistent in what they provide. I think the end game, once the predictions, once we get a couple more months down the road and more legendary mythic heroes happen and more reruns happen, eventually these banners may just become literally all legendary and mythic heroes, which is really good value. And that means that the longer you wait, generally speaking, these tend to increase in value as time goes on, especially for scoring reasons, both in Ether raids and Arena. And the new ally battle also makes an impact on this as well, with Roy actually mattering the most when it comes to playing that mode. We don't know 100% yet, but of course I feel like that is a thing. So as I always do, I'm going to go through the rules really quickly. We're going to look at whatever I consider potential candidates for legendary and mythic heroes, this month being a legendary hero. And yeah, let's do it. So for those of you that are new to this, we're just going to look through what I consider to be predictable patterns. For instance, duplicates have happened, but they seem to be popular units. Stuff like Brave Lynn seems to appear all the time because she's a brave hero and very popular. Rest in peace, Brave Roy, I guess. Brave Roy is kind of got forgotten, I guess. But yeah, Sigurd and Micaiah came back. And I've seen things like Zura and even Young Tiki were showed on these banners before. So that's obviously been there because of popularity. I gotta just contribute that to popularity overall. So I want to add this brand new confirmation. Just like Mist, and she got removed from the permanent pool now, but just like Mist, I have a good theory that I don't think Quan and Thunderhead Olwen are going to appear anymore on these legendary mythic banners because, well, they just don't really, they maybe just weren't popular enough, and whatever data that Intellisystems had, they decided, yeah, we're not releasing these units on legendary mythic banners. People don't want to pull for these units, so I don't think they're ever happening and are just permanently skipped at this point. I mean, Olwen has literally been released over a year ago now, so it would be really weird to see her on a banner. Swift Sparrow is technically available through Grails now, and Renewal is poop, but I know Thunderhead Olwen is a good unit. I gotta admit that. You know, Emerge Thunderhead Olwen is probably one of the strongest units in this game with minimal buffing, so you know there is still some merit to her as a unit. It's just she's just doesn't, it's not like fodder, and most people don't really want her. Big Brother is better. So anyways, moving on, these legendary mythic banners have a legendary mythic hero in every color. As of a long time ago, I think as soon as Grima happened, they've all been covering every single color. So based on that alone, we know that the legendary hero should be colorless this month. I don't know who it'll be, but we'll talk about it in a moment as to some potential candidates for that. And most recent units that are like released within the last month generally don't show up on these legendary mythic banners. There are exceptions. There have been situations where they do skip ahead, but generally speaking, you're not going to see like the Spring Heroes or the Picnic Heroes on this legendary mythic banner. Not yet. You'll see them in a few months. Seasonals are 3 per legendary mythic banner, and they don't double up on a color. They haven't yet. There is no precedent for that, so it's pretty easy to say that we'll probably see all the winter heroes this time of year 2018. So as you can see, it's pretty predictable this time. Most of these predictions won't come to a shock to most people, I don't think. Finally, let's take a look at what I think might be legendary and mythic heroes. So mythics seem to take a more deity kind of approach, like gods and very important lore characters from the Fire Emblem universe. So legendaries, on the other hand, tend to be the heroes of the stories, the FE protagonists. We all know that Ryoma sold Birthright for us, so obviously he was the protagonist of that game, and not Corrin, because Corrin didn't get a legendary hero, so obviously Ryoma was. And that makes total sense, right? If you played Birthright, you know exactly what I mean. Anyways, these are the protagonists from the FE universe that have not been legendary yet. And since we have kind of like a second wave of legendary heroes due to Legendary Roy kind of introducing this new pair-up mechanic, there's a good chance that all of these may at some point become legendary heroes by now. So if you were upset because maybe Sigurd or Leaf didn't get a legendary hero status, there is a possibility of it. However, if I'm going to take a guess here, especially since it looks like the legendary hero may be Earth, possibly Water, it makes kind of sense to me that I think Alm or Celica might be a legendary hero this time. Just a thought. That's just a random guess. I have no grounds for that prediction. It's just, I feel like they're finally giving Shadows of Valentia some attention, so this is probably the time to do it. Anyways, Mythics, we're going to cover that next. Mythic banner predictions, but you can kind of take a quick look at the ones I have given to you if you're curious. Anyways, let's jump into some of the units that you can come to expect within the months to come. So I've listed out the older 5-star exclusives, which have actually not appeared on any legendary banner. They're over here, and most of these are completely outdated and pity breakers, which don't exist in the 5-star permanent pool anymore for new banners. So yeah, nobody really wants this stuff, but who knows if and when they do decide to actually pull from these units, and no one wants it. Like, I'm serious. I don't even think, maybe Zanbato is probably the only thing here that's actually like interesting, or Shield Pulse. Valencia's good on fireballs for AR though, at least, I guess. She does come with fire formation. Anyways, yeah, red is already covered. There's not really much for me to predict here because honestly, well, we already know what's here, right? So, Roy, Ike, and Marth. Whoops, wrong order there. Spoiler alert. But that one's probably pretty predictable anyways. So, yeah. Ike, Roy, and Marth. This makes the red pool of pulling here predictable and good value immediately. We already know that none of these 5 stars here, and even there's quite a backlog, as you guys can see. There's actually 8 heroes after this that could potentially come once there's some space for it. And honestly, the month after is like Hrid, and I think Legendary Hrid, and I think it was Erica. So there's only going to be like 1 unit that can be here. And with the release of new units coming out, they might not be able to fit in all these units at a certain time. But anyways, Roy, Ike, and Marth. Roy is the most important thing here for the new mode, especially if you want to rank high, because pair up will become an important mechanic. However, because he's red and the first of the units, and he's not actually the greatest unit himself, he's just kind of like Legendary Marth, but Legendary Marth could run distant counter and kind of do the same thing, while Roy runs bonus doubler, and his built-in weapon is distant counter. Marth at least has like Binding Shield to counter dragons as a comparison to Roy, and Roy's more supportive with Human Virtue. So it ends up being like kind of like the same unit. But what is interesting here is that you're pulling 2 fire legendary heroes and 1 earth. So if you have tons of orbs to kind of get your value here, you could end up with tons of merges to cover like fire season or potentially earth as well if you already have a couple of Ike merges. And if not anything by that, bonus doubler is a really good skill to inherit. However, I don't really think foddering legendary heroes is a good idea. Ike has Warding Breath, and Marth unfortunately doesn't have much, but I guess Infantry Flash could have one day become useful. We don't know. Attack Speed Bond, not the greatest thing, especially wouldn't recommend foddering it when that skill may become like a grail skill in the future or for free in one way or another. Anyways, yeah, red is red. I'm not going to really touch on it much, kind of just a quick overview of what that is. We'll take a look at it in more detail when the Legendary Banner itself releases. Moving on, we know that Fjorm is returning. Feels bad for Fjorm, though, because Fjorm has, I think at this point, been confirmed to be removed from the arena bonus rotation. So Fjorm has lost a bit of value as a result of that. She doesn't score the best. Even with B-dual infantry becoming a thing, that would not even make her that much better, because you'd be giving up her much needed A skill to score. So the only thing that's kind of redeeming for her is that she is a really good unit when merged up to plus 10 and flowered up and supported and invested in. I tried a new kind of like a special spiral soul steady breath build with Liptir, with infantry pulse, kind of getting like soul and ether raids, and during her bonus season in ether raids she did really well, incredibly well. I was quite surprised actually. So Fjorm is a good unit, but she requires extreme investment merges, and I guess because she's a rotating bonus unit, at least in ether raids there's value there every 4 seasons in ether raids. So a quarter of seasons you have yourself a decent bonus unit. Unfortunately, that does mean that she has to overlap with whatever seasons happen, like Water Astra in the future and Water Light. So that's where it kind of like loses a lot of value there. At this point, Water may be better to merge up like Legendary Azura, I'd say. Maybe even Erica if you want like a really good Gale Force unit. But Fjorm requires way too many orbs at this point to matter. So rest in peace. As for the first unit we can expect to show up after Fjorm, I would say that's Ylgr. So we'll see the little sister at this point. Ylgr is Colored Dagger, so not that great. She pretty much has a similar stat spread to Legault, and Legault has been demoted to 3-star at this point, so Legault is a more ideal unit to merge up if you wanted one, because colorless at least. However, she does have a really good preference weapon. As long as she outspeeds something, she gets tons of attack and speed and guarantees her double, so that's really cool. And combine that with like sturdy impact and you have yourself a pretty decent unit. It's just that being blue doesn't really help her very much. She snowballs and wins the matches that she wins, and then she completely loses the ones she don't. Like very, very tanky green units, which she may run into. So, but she does have Sorcery Blade, and she does have Speed Tactic. Speed Tactic is still 5-star locked and not on a seal, and Sorcery Blade may become useful at some point should the meta change to demand such a skill. So Ylgr at least is a decent combat manual. Moving on, we have Winter Ephraim, because he's the seasonal. There's 3 winter seasonals, so it's quite obvious which ones will show up. There's a possibility they skip the winter seasonals and jump into the New Year's ones. I definitely admit that as a possibility on this coming Legendary banner, but they haven't done that in a while. They haven't done like a skip in quite a few banners, so I don't think that'll happen. Ephraim, though, is good value. Like, this does make blue pretty good. The reason it makes it good is because Bullfighter is good. Bullfighter is a good skill, and Winter Ephraim has that. Plus, you think he has attack defense solo, so yeah, it's good. Like he's good fodder. Fjorm at least still has attack defense bond and shield pulse, still decent skills, and Ylgr has. So blue, if blue ends up like this, you can expect to get some decent results out of it, but nothing totally amazing. Like Legendary Lucina, Legendary Azura may have been better for a lot more people, while this one just tends to be like good fodder overall. Okay, moving on. Our green returnee ends up being Hector. So Hector is always good anytime he's on a legendary or mythic banner, because distant counter, and distant counter is good. The only distant counter we have in the permanent pool now is Nyla, and who knows when she'll get a banner to be foddered off on, but for the time being, Hector ends up being a good pull no matter whether you have him plus 10 or not, merges or otherwise. He's always a good pull to have. As a unit, he's also impressive, so Osteopulse is still useful even in something like Ether Raids, because you can set up Gale Force teams with him by cheating by using Osteopulse. So good unit overall, strong, and has pretty much Worry Fighter built into his weapon, allowing him to probably be the one unit that I think Vengeful Fighter has some value on. Because Vengeful Fighter generally isn't good because you enable enemies to potentially double and kill your unit. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of it. But if you have Warrior Fighter in your weapon, technically with some friends around, he ends up being pretty good. So this one's kind of tricky, but at this point we can probably start seeing some of the beast units from Fates. And I think the first one to show up here should be Kaden. Kaden is next in line, realistically speaking. Kaden has really good support, and I think lining up with Kanagus's release, he's going to be highly desirable. It kind of just makes the most sense to me here. If you have Kanagus or ended up pulling him and want to buff up this tank, then Kaden is your man to go with. He comes with Goat Beasts, and he comes with Speed Res Link, and you can use tactic skills easily on him. He's a cavalry unit. So generally speaking, this is kind of like the banner most recently lined up with Kanagus's release to set up that tanking strategies in Ether Raids. He's also good with everybody else, honestly. You can pretty much combine it with like Male Corrin, Kaden, and create any super tank you want. In terms of fodder, though, he's probably not the greatest, and you might not want really more than one copy of him. So he may devalue the banner overall. Moving on, they confirmed seasonal. Little chicken with antlers. So Winter Fae is probably going to ruin the green banner here. The green on this banner. Unfortunately, Winter Fae doesn't really bring much except Glittering Breath, but Glittering Breath isn't necessarily a good breath, because if you want to use it, you probably have to combine it with Distant Counter. And as an armor dragon, she just ends up having too many problems. Vengeful Fighter, as I just mentioned, even if there's 2 Vengeful Fighters on the green here, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not that desirable of a skill. If this was like Special Fighter, it'd be really good. And you know, any other possibility here could be like Brave Ephraim instead of Winter Fae if they decide to skip. I think that would possibly be a thing if they didn't want to like double up on Vengeful Fighter and they really thought it was a skill that shouldn't be given to people in bulk. But honestly, it's not that great of a skill. So Winter Fae is like the dud of this banner, and you just end up, unless you end up plus 10ing her, and even if you do, that's pretty much an arena score bot at that point. I guess if you're playing for arena, this is not a bad banner by any means. Winter Fae and Legendary Hector can definitely carry you up in score. But in terms of fodder, Hector is pretty much carrying green by himself because he's got Distant Counter. Kaden is a one-off. Winter Fae maybe is a one-off, and that's pretty much the end of that. Winter Fae unfortunately just ended up being kind of a disappointing green. I mean, when you're competing with things like Surtur, green armors won't really feel that good. And then you have mergeable ones like Sheena that also do pretty well. So, moving on. We know that the new Legendary Hero should be colorless because they haven't skipped out on any colors yet when it comes to this. Like, I don't think there's a double up of any Legendary or Legendary Heroes yet on any other color, and skipping colorless completely. Colorless is also kind of needs to fill it out. Like, there's only 6 there. And as a result of that, it makes it pretty simple to understand who's coming next. So Leanne, which was before the Fates units, but Leanne is a good unit here, so it should give value to whatever new Legendary Hero happens. A Flyer Formation did get devalued because of Boki, and Boki will be released in May for Grails. But Leanne is really good, at least for Astra, especially because of Heron Wing, to heal up any upheaval damage that happens. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to maybe seeing Leanne here. And depending on what the Legendary Hero ends up giving for fodder and such, this could be really good value. If you value, I said value like 4 times in 10 seconds. If you really desire Flyer Formation or play with Flyers or Beasts, Leanne will be really good. And the final confirmed winner hero is Winner Erica. Winner Erica is actually an amazing pull to set up like Gale Force teams, or just buffing. No, not Gale Force teams. I'm thinking of Sakura. Buffing. Long distance buffing. Long distance buffing is where Erica truly excels, and you could probably give her skills to just another unit. And I've seen strategies that literally just put Erica or another healer into a corner and then buff up their mega tank from across the map. And that's an interesting way to strategize it, because another reason this is good is if you see enemy aversos, you either use tactics to buff up properly or maybe link skills, and the opening skills, especially as they become more available, and the Joyous Lantern itself lets you really buff in a way that's unique to the game, because you could be buffing units from across the map. Think of like a close counter vantage unit or distant counter vantage unit getting buffed every turn, and they're usually deep into the enemy comp. So these skills, when they become seals or more available, could end up opening some really cool strategies. So Erica kind of enables this stuff, and I feel like her fodder is good for that reason alone. She's also very powerful +10 unit, probably the strongest colorless healer without a doubt, especially stat stacked. She does have the armor weakness, which is unfortunate, but generally speaking, if you don't run into that armor weakness, she is very powerful. But again, merging her up isn't going to be ideal. The most interesting part of colorless here should be the new legendary hero. With all that being said, I know this seemed quite easy to look at. I don't expect any crazy changes on this legendary banner coming up. I think it's going to come out exactly as you see it. If they decide to skip the seasonals this time, then that could be the biggest surprise. But honestly, I don't think they will. And yeah, it means that looking at what we have here, Roy is going to be very desired. Plus, he comes with other units that share. Blue and green could be desirable fodder or one-offs, depending on what fodder you might need. And colorless totally depends on what the legendary hero ends up being. But since the new legendary hero likely will use the pair-up mechanic, they could be more desirable than Roy. So you got to consider your options and where you think you need something here. And of course, we'll look at the legendary banner as it comes out in about a week's time and go from there. So yep, quick review of what we had. Roy, Ike, Marth, Fjorm, Yilger, Winter Ephraim, Hector, Caden, Chicken with Antlers, new legendary hero Leanne, and Erica. Pretty standard stuff. I think the mythic banner coming up next month though might be a better place to spend your orbs, especially if you care about ether raids, and the Astro hero that should be confirmed for then, because that will be required to get high rankings and scores in ether raids. So if you think you need to save, this would be the place to do it, just so you can get some good ranks there. All right. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please let me know in the comments below what you think might be coming up, or which characters you maybe desire on a legendary banner or mythic banner coming up. Do you like our boy Roy? Let me know. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys. Peace.